In the middle of Smooth Criminal, Michael Jackson's vision blurred, his chest tightened, and in front of 50,000 screaming fans, he was about to collapse. Backstage, panic erupted. "Call the medics," his security chief shouted. But Michael gave only one reply: "No, I won't let them down." That night, he defied his own body, returned to the stage, and performed at the risk of death. But what no one realized was this: Munich was his body's final warning. And when Michael refused to listen, tragedy became inevitable. If you've ever sacrificed your own well-being for others, this story will hit you hard. Subscribe and share your thoughts below about the impossible choices we make for the people we love. Munich, Germany, July 1997. The Olympic Stadium is electric with anticipation. 50,000 fans from across Europe have gathered to witness the King of Pop perform during his History World Tour. Some have traveled for days, spending their life saving just to be here. Young mothers holding babies, elderly couples who've loved Michael since the Jackson 5, teenagers who grew up dancing to Thriller, all united by their worship of one man who changed music forever. Michael emerges from beneath the stage in his iconic black fedora and military-style jacket, the crowd erupting in a deafening roar that shakes the very foundations of the stadium. But if you looked closely past the dazzling lights and choreographed perfection, you could see something else. Pain. Deep, bone-crushing pain that no amount of medication could fully mask anymore. Michael had been battling lupus for years, an autoimmune disease that attacked his own body from within, like a war being fought in his bloodstream. The joint pain was excruciating, like glass grinding in his bones with every movement. His skin was hypersensitive, burning under the stage lights that once energized him. The fatigue was overwhelming, but the show, as always, had to go on. The King of Pop didn't have the luxury of sick days. 50,000 people had paid their hard-earned money, traveled from different countries, some maxing out credit cards and taking time off work they couldn't afford just to see him perform. He couldn't let them down. He never let them down. The pressure wasn't just from the fans. It was from himself. Michael Jackson had built his entire identity around perfection, around being the entertainer who never disappointed, never showed weakness, never let the magic slip even for a moment. His father Joe's voice still echoed in his mind from childhood. The audience comes first. Always. No matter what you're feeling, no matter how much it hurts, you give them everything. Those lessons, beaten into him since he was 5 years old, had created the greatest entertainer in history, but they were also slowly killing him. But tonight felt different. Even before stepping on stage, Michael's longtime friend and security chief, Bill Bray, noticed something troubling. He looked gray, Bill would later recall. Not pale, but gray, like the life was being drained out of him with each breath. His hands were shaking in a way I'd never seen before. Michael's personal physician, Dr. Neil Ratner, had examined him earlier that day and expressed serious concerns about his condition. The combination of lupus flare-ups, chronic pain medication, sleep deprivation, and the physical demands of performing were creating a perfect storm in Michael's body. "Michael, maybe we should consider postponing tonight," Dr. Ratner had suggested during the afternoon soundcheck. Michael's response was immediate and firm. "These people have been waiting months to see this show. I've never canceled a performance in my life, and I'm not starting now." It was that dedication, that unwavering commitment to his craft and his fans that had made Michael Jackson a global icon, but it was also slowly killing him. The show began with his usual electrifying energy. "Scream, They Don't Care About Us," "Stranger in Moscow," each song performed with the precision and passion that only Michael Jackson could deliver. But his band members, who had worked with him for years, could sense something was wrong. The way he gripped the microphone stand a little too tightly, the way his breathing seemed labored between songs, the subtle tremor in his hands that only those closest to him would notice. Karen Fay, his longtime makeup artist and friend, watched from the wings with growing concern. He was fighting something that night, she would later remember. Every movement looked like it was costing him more than it should. But Michael being Michael, he turned that struggle into art. Even in pain, he was magnificent. Then came the moment that would haunt everyone who witnessed it. Michael was deep into Smooth Criminal, one of his most physically demanding performances. The song requires intense choreography, sharp movements, and the stamina of an Olympic athlete. Michael was hitting every mark, every beat, his body moving with that supernatural grace that had made him the most celebrated performer in the world. But suddenly, something went terribly wrong. Michael was approaching the song's climactic moment when his vision started to narrow. The stadium lights began to blur together into one blinding white mass. His chest felt like it was being crushed by an invisible weight, each breath becoming a monumental effort. The pain shooting through his joints intensified to a level that made him dizzy. His heart wasn't just racing from the performance, it was racing from something else. Something dangerous. The irony was cruel. Here was Michael Jackson, the man who had spent his entire life perfecting the art of movement, whose body was his instrument, his canvas, his voice to the world, and now that same body was betraying him in front of the very people who had made him immortal. The lupus was attacking his joints, his muscles, his very ability to do what he was born to do. But Michael fought it, the way he had fought everything else in his life. Poverty, racism, family dysfunction, media persecution. He had always won before through sheer will and determination. Michael reached for his signature fedora, but not as part of the choreography. His legs were suddenly uncertain beneath him, the same legs that had moonwalked their way into history. The stage seemed to tilt just slightly, but enough to throw off his legendary balance. For one terrifying moment, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the man who had moonwalked his way into immortality, was falling in front of 50,000 people. The crowd held its collective breath without even realizing it. Something in the air shifted. Even those in the back rows, hundreds of feet away, sensed that this wasn't part of the show. This was different. This was real. This was their hero, their idol, their source of joy and inspiration, in genuine distress. Somehow, through sheer force of will and decades of muscle memory, Michael caught himself. He grabbed the microphone stand and managed to stay upright, transforming his near collapse into what looked like an artistic choice. The crowd, desperate to believe everything was fine, erupted in even louder cheers. Only his band and crew knew the truth. Their king was in serious trouble. The moment Michael staggered off the stage during a brief instrumental break, chaos erupted backstage. Bill Bray was already on his radio, barking orders. "Get the car ready. We're taking him to the hospital. Now." Dr. Ratner pushed through the crowd of dancers and technicians, his medical bag in hand. "Michael, we need to get you checked out immediately. Your body is telling us something important." But even in his weakened state, even barely able to stand without support, Michael's resolve was unshakable. "No," his voice was weak but determined. "No hospital. I won't let them down." He was leaning against a concrete wall, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his face pale and covered in sweat that had nothing to do with stage lights. "Michael, you nearly collapsed out there," Dr. Ratner pressed. "Your body is sending us a warning." "I said no hospital," Michael repeated, his breathing labored. "They paid to see Michael Jackson, and that's what they're going to get." The crew gathered around, everyone talking at once. Someone mentioned calling an ambulance. Someone else tried to convince Michael to sit down. But Michael wouldn't sit because if he sat down, he knew he might not get back up. And there were still 45 minutes left in the show. 45 minutes that could make or break the dreams of 50,000 people who had traveled from across Europe just to see him perform. "You don't understand," Michael said, his voice growing stronger with each word, fueled by that legendary determination. "Some of these people saved for months to buy these tickets. Some of them are here for the first time. Some of them might never get another chance to see me perform. I can't let them down. I won't let them down." What Michael did next defied everything medical professionals would recommend. If you've ever pushed yourself beyond your limits because you didn't want to disappoint people who were counting on you, you'll understand what drove Michael that night. He took a cocktail of pain medication that Dr. Ratner reluctantly provided, enough to get him through the next 45 minutes without collapsing again. "5 minutes," stage manager John Bronca announced to the restless crowd over the PA system. "Michael will be right back." Those 5 minutes felt like hours to everyone backstage. They watched as Michael leaned against that wall, forcing his breathing to slow, trying to will his body back under control. The makeup team touched up his appearance, but they couldn't hide the exhaustion in his eyes. Karen Fay approached him quietly. "You don't have to do this, Michael. These people love you. They'll understand if you need to stop." Michael looked at her with eyes that were both determined and desperate. "I've never walked out on a show in my life, Karen. My father taught me that the show must always go on. I'm not starting now." "Michael, you could die out there," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "Then I die doing what I love," he replied simply. "But I won't die disappointing 50,000 people who believe in me." The next 45 minutes were both triumph and tragedy. Michael walked back onto that stage to thunderous applause, and somehow, impossibly, he continued to perform. Not with the explosive energy he was famous for, but with something even more powerful: pure heart. He modified his choreography, holding on to the microphone stand more often, but his voice, that incredible angelic voice, still had the magic that had made him the most beloved entertainer in the world. He performed Billie Jean with tears streaming down his face, partly from the physical pain, partly from the overwhelming love he felt from the audience. During Man in the Mirror, he seemed to pour his very soul into every note, as if he knew this might be one of his last chances to share his message of hope and healing with the world. The crowd didn't care that he wasn't dancing as much as usual. They were just grateful to be in the same room with Michael Jackson, to witness greatness even in its most vulnerable form. But backstage, his team was watching a man destroy himself in real time for the sake of others' happiness. Every song felt like it might be his last. Every movement between numbers made them hold their breath, expecting him to finally collapse. Dr. Ratner stood ready with emergency medical equipment. Bill Bray had arranged for an ambulance to wait outside the stadium. But Michael kept going, fueled by nothing but love for his fans and an almost supernatural dedication to his craft. When he finally hit the last note of "Heal the World," his closing song, the relief backstage was overwhelming. He had made it. Somehow, impossibly, he had made it through. Michael took his bow to a standing ovation that lasted nearly 10 minutes. 50,000 people on their feet, crying, cheering, holding up signs that said, "We love you, Michael." And in that moment, despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, despite everything his body had put him through, Michael smiled. This was what he lived for. This connection, this love from people who didn't know him personally but adored him anyway. But the moment he stepped off stage, everything changed. The adrenaline that had carried him through those final 45 minutes suddenly disappeared. Michael's legs gave out completely. If Bill Bray and Dr. Ratner hadn't been right there to catch him, he would have hit the concrete floor hard. "Hospital." Now Dr. Ratner ordered, no longer taking no for an answer. This time Michael didn't have the energy to argue. He couldn't. They got him to a waiting car, laid him carefully in the back seat, and rushed him to Munich's premier medical facility. The doctors who examined him were shocked by what they found. His autoimmune system was in overdrive, attacking his body's healthy tissue. His pain medication levels were dangerously high. Most alarming, his heart was showing signs of serious stress. "Mr. Jackson," the lead physician said gravely, "your body is breaking down. If you don't rest, if you don't dramatically reduce your performance schedule, you're going to face serious, potentially fatal health consequences." Michael heard the words, but all he could think about was the next show on the tour. There were still dozens of cities left to visit, hundreds of thousands of fans waiting to see him perform. What Michael did the next morning shocked everyone who cared about him. The doctors wanted to keep him hospitalized for at least a week, to run comprehensive tests, monitor his heart, and try to stabilize his autoimmune condition. But when the sun came up, Michael checked himself out. "I have a show in Amsterdam tomorrow night," he told the incredulous medical staff. "People are counting on me." "Mr. Jackson, you'll be risking your life if you continue performing at this intensity," the doctor warned. "Your body cannot sustain this level of stress." "I have obligations," Michael replied simply. "I have fans who have been waiting to see me perform. I can't let them down." He returned to his hotel, took a shower, put on another sequin jacket, and prepared for the next city, the next stage, the next opportunity to give everything he had to people who loved his music. His team couldn't believe it. Dr. Ratner tried everything to convince him to cancel at least a few shows, to give his body time to recover. "Michael, last night you nearly died," he pleaded. "Your body is sending you a message." "But I didn't die," Michael responded. "And those people in Amsterdam bought tickets to see a show. They deserve the best I can give them." This was who Michael Jackson was. A man so dedicated to his fans, so terrified of disappointing anyone who believed in him, that he would literally risk death rather than cancel a performance. But his body was keeping score. Over the next several years, Munich would repeat itself in different cities, on different stages, but always the same story. Michael pushing through pain that would hospitalize most people, ignoring warning after warning from his own body. The combination of lupus, chronic pain medication, and the incredible physical demands of being Michael Jackson were creating a deadly cocktail in his system. His friends begged him to slow down. His doctors pleaded with him to take breaks between tours. But Michael had convinced himself that stopping would be worse than dying. "The day I can't perform is the day I die anyway," he told them repeatedly. Have you ever been so afraid of disappointing others that you pushed past every warning sign your body gave you? Michael Jackson spent his entire career doing exactly that, choosing the happiness of others over his own well-being, until one day his body made the final choice for him. June 25, 2009. The final warning had passed. Michael was preparing for his This Is It tour, a series of shows that was supposed to be his triumphant return to live performance. But this time, his body didn't give him a warning. This time, it just said no. The details of that day are well documented, but what people don't always connect is the direct line between Munich 1997 and that bedroom in Los Angeles. Every time Michael ignored his body's warnings, every time he chose the show over his health, every time he took medication to push through pain instead of resting, it all led to that final, tragic day. Munich wasn't the cause of Michael Jackson's death, but it was a preview, a dress rehearsal for the tragedy that was coming. Michael Jackson spent his entire life trying to be what everyone else needed him to be. The perfect performer, the loyal friend, the entertainer who never let anyone down. But in trying to be everything for everyone else, he forgot to be something for himself, alive. The doctors who examined Michael after Munich told him that his body was giving him a choice: rest or face serious consequences. Michael chose to perform, and eventually his body made the choice for him. The tragedy isn't that Michael died young. The tragedy is that he died exactly the way he lived, sacrificing himself for an audience that would have forgiven him for being human. Munich should have been Michael's wake-up call, the moment when he realized that his body had limits, that being the king of pop didn't make him immortal. But Michael couldn't hear that message because hearing it would have meant admitting weakness. And Michael Jackson, who had overcome poverty, racism, and countless obstacles to become the most famous person on earth, couldn't show weakness. So he kept pushing, kept performing, kept choosing the show over survival until one day there was no show left to choose. The people in Munich that night witnessed something extraordinary. Not just a great performance, but a man willing to die rather than disappoint them. They just didn't realize they were watching a preview of what was to come. Michael's story reminds us that dedication becomes destruction when we can't hear our own bodies begging us to stop. That loyalty becomes suicide when we care more about others' expectations than our own survival. And most importantly, that the people who truly love us would rather we disappoint them once than watch us destroy ourselves trying to be perfect. If this story about the real cost of never saying no moved you, remember that taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. What would you have done in Michael's position that night in Munich? Would you have walked away from 50,000 fans, or would you have pushed through like he did? Sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is disappoint others to save ourselves. Michael Jackson never learned that lesson, and the world lost its greatest entertainer because of it.